afternoon, and welcome to the Biology Report, where we tell you the latest in biology news. Today, we're looking at, you guessed it, global warming. Now, I'm sure you probably all know the general idea about global warming, but let's take a look and see exactly how it works. Quick review. Global warming. Under normal circumstances, the Earth's atmosphere contains certain amounts of CO2, or carbon dioxide, methane, and water vapor. These are known as greenhouse gases, and are demonstrated in orange. The gases are generally produced through cellular respiration and decomposition. They act as a blanket, holding heat close to the Earth, and this allows there to be life on Earth. Global warming is happening because humans have created too many greenhouse gases: carbon dioxide, methane, and nitrous oxide. These are created by burning fossil fuels. These large quantities of greenhouse gases created by humans flood the atmosphere and are hard to eliminate because us humans have also eliminated many forests that once removed CO2 from the atmosphere. By burning carbon fossil fuels created over a span of 1 million years, we have flooded the atmosphere with greenhouse gases, and we have fundamentally changed the Earth's climate. The IPCC, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, came up with 6 findings on global warming. Michael McCracken, a PhD, the chief scientist for climate change at the Climate Change Institute in Washington, D.C., will tell us about it.
There are basically 6 key points that they have arrived at. First of all is that human activities are changing the composition of the atmosphere. Second point is that changing the atmospheric composition is going to warm the planet. The third one is we've been making these changes in atmospheric composition for roughly 150 years, and we're starting to see the consequences of that. Fourth point is if we continue to do what we're doing, we're going to cause very dramatic changes in the climate. Fifth is if you change the climate this much, you're going to see some effects. And the sixth finding that they've shown is if you want to slow this down, and it's going to take many decades to slow it down and take action because we've been doing it for so long, we're going to have to take some rather dramatic action.
Global warming. So now you know how it works, but do you believe it? Seems kind of dramatic, right? We'll get back to that later. But first, let's find out what happens when the globe warms. What are the effects? To find out this, I went all the way to Chadwick School. I'm here at Chadwick School, and behind me is the Quinlan Science Lab, where students are learning about global warming every day. I came here to interview Mr. Martin Byhauer. Let's see what he has to say.
I've been talking about global warming since I started here at Chadwick 28 years ago, and it's a little more in vogue as a concern now. Our positive feedback of global warming is more global warming, because as the ice sheets melt, then that means there's less white to reflect light, which means more solar radiation is absorbed by the oceans, which means any ice that's in contact with water is going to melt faster. So global warming causes global warming. And in terms of ocean acidification, it dissolves the shells of invertebrates, prevents coral and phytoplankton, which are declining, from doing photosynthesis. So that means there's more carbon dioxide remaining in the atmosphere. It is resulting in one of the greatest mass extinctions ever to occur on Earth. And so I think that human populations are going to decline precipitously at some point. I think that so many of the consequences of global warming and global climate change aren't even predictable, that we don't really know where it's going to go, but I think that humans ultimately will survive, and maybe in thousands of years from now, when we have another chance, we won't blow it again.
Now you know the so-called causes and effects of global warming. It looks to me like a mass extinction on one hand, and a loss of resources on the other. Are you scared? Do you think this is just a little bit dramatic? Well, if you do, you're not the only one out there. The science that we just went over is taught by the IPCC, or the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. The IPCC is the United Nations Committee on Global Warming. Its mission is to find a consensus about climate change. Although, there are many scientists and politicians who disagree with the IPCC and their models. These people are sometimes called skeptics or deniers, but they have evidence and they also have theories. So why don't we go see what their argument is?
Somehow the IPCC has become a global warming Bible, if you will. You can't disagree with this global warming statement. And if you do, you're some sort of skeptic. They question your motives, they attack you personally, and so forth.
It is not a particularly warm period we're in. Not in the context of, or in the perspective of past climates.
Interesting diagram. One of the things about the climate change issue that is a great concern to me is the fact that some of these policy decisions could cost quite a lot and yet have no effect at all on the climate.
In my commission, I can hardly find anyone which would subscribe to the IPCC scenario.
The question is why flawed models are used as a basis for enormously expensive policy decisions, far-reaching policy decisions. They shouldn't be.
I have to speak out and say that the science we have is still incomplete. And the science we're being told by the IPCC is really incorrect science.
Some global warming skeptics don't even believe that global warming exists, but most believe in the Little Ice Age theory. Now the IPCC promotes their theory, commonly dubbed as the hockey stick theory. The old Little Ice Age theory shows the temperature in the last 1,000 years. The theory shows that the Middle Ages were in fact warmer than the current times, and that we emerged from a mini ice age about 140 years ago. The IPCC hockey stick theory fails to show both the medieval warm period and the mini ice age. It is called the hockey stick theory because only in the last part of the graph at the right does it soar sharply upward. This implies that the recent warming is unusual.
And I agree completely that we have had a global temperature increase in the 20th century. Yes. But an increase from what? Probably an increase from the lowest point we've had for the last 10,000 years. And this means that it will be very hard indeed to prove whether the increase of temperature in the 20th century was man-made or it's a natural variation. That will be very hard because we made ourselves an extremely poor experiment. We started to observe meteorology at the coldest spot in the last 10,000 years.
The anthropogenic gases, CO2, methane, are not the major cause of global warming, or if global warming really exists.
In both houses of legislation, global warming has sparked fierce debates.
Global warming science is uneven and evolving. We need to be deliberative and careful when we talk about so-called scientific facts.
By the cycles, the Earth's orbit around the Sun gets thinner and wider on a 100,000-year cycle. The tilt oscillates 1.5 degrees on a 41,000-year cycle. There's a wobble called precession on a 22,000-year cycle. And when those three overlap, it creates that historic pattern. That's been true for 3 million years.
But it remains a fact, and it's clear from the data that we do have, that for hundreds of thousands of years, CO2 levels have followed temperature rise, not the other way around.
When CO2 goes up, temperature goes up.
To whether or not CO2 is in fact a danger to our people and to the people of the world.
In order to find out what most people think is happening, I interviewed random people at Chadwick School.
Mostly caused by humans?
Yes, it's caused by humans.
I think that it's kind of a mixture of humans and just the way that the world is working.
Caused by humans.
No, I don't. I think it's cyclical.
Caused by humans?
No, it's caused by aliens.
Definitely caused by humans.
I discovered that 2/3 of the people believed that global warming is caused by humans. This showed a consensus among the Chadwick community. IPCC theory is valid. The globe has been warming in the last century. Although, it seems as though the skeptics have many valid points. So what's to say that they're not correct? So, which is it? This?
Global warming is happening because humans have altered the Earth's atmospheres.
Or this?
Or if global warming really exists, explain that to the people in Oklahoma. We had the largest snowstorm.
The answer is neither. The debate is not yet over, And before jumping to past extreme and costly solutions that may not solve the problem, we need to clearly come to a real scientific consensus and identify the problem, and then enact a solution that works. But in the meantime, we should all do our best to slow global warming. The failure to act has much greater consequences than us all working together individually to reduce our carbon footprints and, most importantly, get on the track to living sustainable lives. So, what will you do? That's all, folks. See you next time on the Biology News Network.